It's been a while. It's good to catch up.
Well, it's been a long time, Jed, but where's the time gone?
Well, we had COVID. I think we did a bit of video.
Back then. Well, I had COVID. I got it from you, if you remember.
I know. What was that like?
Well, death's door was what it was like.
Yeah. It's quite a memorable event. But since then, we've had a fair few events happening here and there on the golf scene. You've seen what we watch on TV. That's all changing now, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What would you mean, the live things?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. I thought it was interesting, Jed, the other day that McIlroy, who seems to be the voice piece for the tour, said it was about time Greg Norman left the scene, exit left, and then said we got an adult in the room. I mean, it really is quite pathetic, isn't it? I think that
I think bringing this kind of material into the golf world it's disappointing, to say the least, really.
Well, look, we all perceive that golfers have a charmed lifestyle, and yet professional golfers are in the lowest 25%, the lowest quartile of the happiest people on the planet. They don't, I don't begrudge any of these people who are self-employed people. This is my personal view. Plying their trade wherever they can get the most money. I mean, you would do it, I would do it. It seems to me that the US Tour have raped the European Tour with the players. It all started the PGA Tour when a group of about 8 players got together and said, we're going to do this ourselves. Can we make more money? You've just seen the race to Dubai, the final round, and in that final round there were like half the ranking points on that event, and there's an event in America where the highest ranking players, like 12 in the world, they got more ranking points. It's all geared to the States, isn't it, really? And
but in all honesty, we've grown up with golf and we've been fed on this beautiful BBC coverage in our younger years. The dulcet tones of Peter Allis and the classics, and then we've kind of been overfed, with the satellite channels and how money has saturated the business, and then this happening in the last few years where someone's tried to jazz it up. Because I must admit, if I'm at home on a Sunday evening and you're watching some obscure thing from the US, like the Houston Open or whatever, I'm not really into it, but I do find it a little bit dull. It does need a kick up the backside. I
rarely watch it unless it's a major final round. I rarely watch it. It's just a putting competition, isn't it, on the TV, really? They don't want you to see the shanks and the mishits and the tantrums. It just doesn't happen. Will Live work? Well, it's already had an effect, hasn't it? They've increased the prize money dramatically to match it. I think 54 holes is enough.
Yep.
And if I was blessed to be a tour player, and I could make more money and spend more time at home and not travel. These guys travel the world, and they're making appearances here, there, and everywhere. And make no mistake about it, these tours, the US PGA Tour, the European Tour, they make a fortune out of these players. They make a fortune out of them.
I think the needs of the consumer, though. I mean, you look at, say, cricket. Okay, so Test cricket.
Yeah.
That is dying a very slow death because it's over 5 days.
Do you think?
People don't have the time to watch it, but the interest in 2020, one day, you look at the county matches, the county scene, and if I ever happen to put that on the channel, I'm just seeing an empty ground and a very boring state of play.
I think the county scene definitely, but I'm not sure I agree with you on the international 5-day events. England, Australia, in India. The test grounds are pretty full. There's an incredible atmosphere, but then again, the effect of the shorter game has had a dramatic effect on how they bat in their tests, isn't it? They go out there and give it a go. So look, it will have an effect, Jed. There's no question about it. It's going to have it's a major effect, and things will change.
And really, I think golf needs to modernise as well. I mean, we've seen some big changes, not just across the UK, but even here on the Isle of Man, how we've got women's golf, has been adopted, accepted in most clubs, but things have changed. The likes of the juniors, the setup that we've got a junior golf to try and make it a little bit more fun, a little bit more quicker to get round. Having these 6-hole competitions and things, 9-hole competitions, they do seem to be, catching the eye of the new golfer.
Yeah, I think I think there's certainly merit in a 9-12 hole golf course. There's or competitions for sure. Certainly merit in that because the length of time the game takes is definitely an issue and has been an issue. I when I started playing, I remember there was and this is many years ago. There was uproar in the club in the golf club uproar because the medal round had gone to about 3.5 hours. People got round. They didn't muck about. And today, getting 4.5-5 hours to me doesn't make sense. I just don't understand how people can't play a lot quicker than they do.
But of course, for new players coming into the game to sacrifice 4-5 hours and maybe attend a presentation and things, it is quite a test.
Well, you've got to get to the ground, you've got to prepare, you've got to get your card, and then you want to drink after you put your card in. You're not, if you're taking 4.5-5 hours, you can add another hour on. It's a whole day out, and I think that's a problem for most people.
But do you think the difficulty is that when you begin the game and then to get the ball round for 18 holes, it can be quite a test, and it's having that vault, say, from getting the ball up in the air and you start to get it round and you start to complete scores on holes, but then to do it 18 times in less than, say, 100 shots, it's a magnificent challenge.
Oh, it's a huge challenge, yeah. And the challenge for most people starts with the control of their state. You get bored between shots, you get distracted during shots, you have conversations about what you expect and are my hands in the right place and don't do this and don't do that. It's a huge challenge to go to a macro visualization of things and awareness of stuff into micro visualization at the ball or a dimple and an association with the target. You don't get that really when you start to play very often. What you get is put your hands here, do this, and really it should be more about body movement and just getting the ball to target.
Okay, so you've got somebody coming new into the game, and they can chug along with the mates, which isn't a bad thing, because they might enjoy the environment, they might enjoy being with a bunch of pals, they might not be doing it right, but they might get the ball round.
What do you mean by doing it right?
Doing it right by that they've got a bit of tempo, they're able to get through the ball, and they haven't got the head all full of
there's no right or wrong way to.
Yeah. So or alternatively, they might be given some lessons, and then somehow integrate yourself into a club. That is quite a challenge.
Yeah.
Unless you know the right people, you're in the right place, and you've got someone who's like a grandfather to you who'll bring you along. It really is difficult. I mean, you must have seen some good stories and not so good stories.
Yeah, I think fortunately more good than bad. I think the key issue for me is a patience on everybody's part, patience and tolerance on everybody's part, that people are learning, and you've got to give them enough scope to learn and not put pressure on them to be kind to them and let them be kind to themselves. That's the first thing. Second thing is, I think that the big issue, the big change for me is, when I started playing, was it 50 odd years ago, it was a golf course with a clubhouse. I think those days have gone. I think it's a destination that has a golf course, and I think that if the club really wants to be successful these days, it's got to embrace the family ethos. It's got to have husband and wives coming in. It's got to have a lot more social golf. To me, there's far too much emphasis on handicap. Now, I'm not saying it's not important. People want to test themselves, but there is just, for me, not enough social golf. I think people should be out with partners, etc., with families, the family cup, the Mr. and Mrs., the this, and have a bite to eat after, and a quality bite to eat as well. I don't mean, people's expectations of food and delivery that has gone up. And in golf clubs, when you used to be looking at sausage, egg, and chips, and it was the old 50 pence, 10 shillings or whatever it would be, or whatever. Those days have gone. I think people's expectation is more, and I think golf clubs have got to go with it, and it's got to be a destination with a course, and then a lot more social stuff. But
the club has got a key role to play, because golf clubs are different bodies really. certainly through the island, you've got your private clubs, you've got your member clubs, and the private clubs are managed differently, and I think there's so much responsibility on the private clubs on how we can bring new people into the game, and how can we look after them and make them want to play year on year on year, and identifying these roles in the club, which could be something as simple as who is the competition secretary or who is going to be setting handicaps, that things aren't too strict and things aren't too oppressive, which quite often the environments in golf clubs, can be where someone's perhaps a little bit too forceful with the rules.
Well, I think, as I said, you've got to be kind to people. You've got to accept they don't know. It's a learning thing. It's an educational thing. It's an etiquette thing. All of those things are massively important. But the rules of golf dictate golf played a certain way. But I would have beginners competitions. I'd let them tee the ball up no matter where it was. Put it on a tee in the middle of the fairway. It doesn't matter. Put it on a tee in the bunker. It makes no damn difference, does it? What you want them to do is have fun and enjoy it. Same with the juniors. Get out there and let it go, and don't beat yourself up if you make a mistake. Learn from it, and don't allow anybody else to beat you up either, because there's too much of that still goes on in golf.
I think the difficulties that I see is where at the higher level, I wouldn't say the elite level, but the club golf level, it's the President's Prize or what have you, and there's a set of rules that really are black and white, and they're confined to all the players in the field. But the new players coming through, the new people who are coming into golf, it's just too much for them.
Of course it is. 18 holes is too much. The restrictions on handicap and all that, they're too much. Of course they are. But clearly, if somebody gets to a place where their handicap becomes official and they can play and whatever, then good luck, good news. That's fantastic. But there is certainly an interim period where it's just about encouragement and putting into a social game of golf. You can put a competitive element with it. Play with somebody that knows a few of the rules, but somebody that's going to be guiding them around the golf course as opposed to challenging them to make a good shot. It's
But quite often you'll be finding that, say, a club diary is cut and pasted.
Yeah.
Year upon
year.
year.
Same. Yeah.
And for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And we recognise that people volunteer in golf clubs and do great work and what have you, but quite often there's a resistance, to change.
Absolutely.
And that really, the third week in July is always this particular competition.
Unbelievable, isn't it?
And it's set in stone, and yet the reality is that the entry numbers for these competitions could be falling. There's the demographic where, in 5 years' time, where's the club going to be?
It's falling. Of course it's falling. Look, we have to embrace change, and you've got to understand what the market is for people. For me, if I were involved with running a golf club, I would be saying, what members do I need to get? Where do I need to put? There's only so many. I mean, I think about 5-6 years ago, we had a 3,000 odd people playing golf on the Isle of Man. Now, pre-COVID, it dropped to 2,000. Now, it might be up a little bit now, but it's dropping again. I know it is.
I think we're over 2,000, and we're quite comfortable. We did have that COVID bounce, which was a stroke of luck for the golf industry. Certainly.
Yeah.
But I think we've got to grow and retain and prosper.
Do you think it's going to grow in these times when the cash is going to be difficult?
I think golf courses have got to be resilient and clever, and they've got to get people into golf. But it's how that is going to happen, because I think quite often the professionals are tied into retail. They're tied into not being able to perhaps take on an assistant or someone that can help with coaching. I see that as an issue. I actually see a lot of people involved in golf are stuck in time, maybe still in the 1990s, the good old days. So I think there is, some scope for some big changes, really.
Well, I think that the way to approach golf is to look at your club, to look at your existing client base, how many you've got in each category, to then say, look, what do we need more of? Now, there's no question in my mind that there is a significant opportunity for women to take up the game. Still is. I mean, we've had quite a lot of success at Rowney with the women taking up the game. And the days have gone where women couldn't play on a Saturday or a Sunday, although there are club nights on the island where it's a club night and women can't play, which I find quite ridiculous. If it's a club night, it's open to everybody, but not men only. That's just a view. I think that if you've got a low number of lady players in your golf club, female players in your golf club, you've got to ask yourself what's stopping them playing. What have we got to do to attract them? Because they are significant. It's 50% of the bloody population. There should be 50% of ladies in the golf club. And if you've got a golf club that's got less than 20 lady members and you've got 200 men, that tells you something. You've got to increase the female usage of the golf club. Now, how do you do that? If let's just take myself and Jan, my wife. Jan plays social golf. She hits the ball pretty well. She plays on holiday, she gets the ball round, she can probably knock it in around 100, maybe 95 to 100, which for somebody that plays golf 3 times a year is pretty impressive. A short game needs a lot of work, but she just doesn't play. If somebody was to say, would you come and join me at this golf club? And they would say it's going to cost you 700, 900 quid a year. She won't do it. She will not do it. If it was 500 quid, and she could go play Monday to Friday in the week and meet the friends and whatever in a bike, she'd do it. Now the chances then of saying, well, do you want to do Saturday and Sunday membership to get, now you've got a handicap, that's the way to grow it. I do not understand how you don't have a reduced rate for husband and wife and family members and whatever, instead of this well, the ladies are running this section, the men are running this section, it's 900 quid for this, and it's 900 quid for that. So generally it's 1800 quid. Not going to pay it. Not because we can't afford it, it's just not going to get value for money. And that's part of the problem. I think you've got to understand what your club needs, not what the other club is doing, or what your club needs, and can you deliver value for money to that member. They've got to see some value. Yes, the food is great. Yes, the opening hours are good. Yes, we're welcome. Yes, we have people who really care about what we do here, and they want us here. They care about our game. There's empathy with the game. When I give lessons, I always want people to tell me how they're getting on after the lesson. I don't want to leave them say, right, give me a shout when in 6 months' time, or I want to know how, what are the issues? What is it you haven't taken from the lesson that you wanted to take that you could? So it's just really being part of this club environment, and that's what I see clubs should do.
You've got to look after people. I think people that you're bringing into the game, they're under your supervision, your responsibility, and there is that warmth. Because you're teaching them and you're seeing the benefits and you're seeing them enjoy it, and that's great. But you're a good guy and you want to take them through along the journey. It can't just be a walk out the door and
It's all too often that's what it is, though, isn't it?
Yeah. So I'll make a few tweaks, give a few tips, that sort of thing.
A tip, great. Tips work.
It's that where we've got to change, but also on the club front, I think anyone involved in golf, they've got to look at who's on the entry sheet, at the presentation, who is around the room, how old are these people, what is their, what is their expectancy as a member, a fruitful member, in the next 5 years.
Frightening though, isn't it, when you look around the room?
And then we've got to look at golf clubs, and we'll go back to the diary, and we'll go where the diary is set in stone, and that is a thing that we've always done, and really. We need to be looking forward, and we need to be thinking about, right, there are, say, young parents in their 20s and 30s, and they're working during the week, or they're working part-time, or what have you. And really, there needs to be scope, say, for like a 6-hole competition.
Absolutely.
A 9-hole competition.
Absolutely.
And it's something which they can get round, they can play together, they can drag the kids along,
yeah.
They could bring the kid along in a pushchair, if you like.
Yeah.
And do something where it's all done in a couple of hours, because life is busy now.
Golf is, certainly on the island, is far, far too orientated towards the elite players. That's it. The elite squads. I mean, look, again, we back in Oswald Street, Llanymonic, we would have the Hargroves Trophy, same as our elite competitions over here, and then go to a knockout and you'd win it. It's a big prestigious competition, but that just by its nature eliminates 99% of the club members, doesn't it? So what we had, and they still have, is they have a handicap league, and clubs have a handicap club, normal club members that go out and shank it and go out and tow it, but compete against other clubs. There's nothing of it. It's absolutely nowhere. Where's the last time that you saw on the Isle of Man a Peel Golf Club playing roundly in a social match?
I think you'll get it in the seniors, and there'll be some of the. I think the ladies have got a variety of leagues, haven't they?
They have, they have, and are successful. Isn't that great?
It is.
It is. It's just great.
It's fantastic. In fact, if you compare the energy of the ladies leagues to that of, say, the Scratch League, I think it's fair to say Scratch League didn't quite go to plan this year, with some miscommunication. I don't know about the amount of teams in a league, but they ended up with having to play 13 fixtures. It was a massive league, and it was quite obvious what was going to happen. Halfway through the season, there'd be dead rubber games, and they'd have difficulty fielding, full squads, and it really, fell flat. So hopefully we can kind of rejig things for next year.
Look, the Scratch League is the Scratch League. It eliminates 90% of players in the club
and the rest.
Yeah. So I would want a league, competitive league based on handicaps, and go and play your league matches.
And why not?
Well, and get a list of 20 and 30 people. Have 2 teams per bloody club. If competition is what you want, but it shouldn't be. It should not be geared to the elite of golf, and it is.
And really, if there are members of the Isle of Man Golf Union, they paid their £16.50 subs, which will be 2023 rate. I think there should be some entitlement to go to other clubs and take part in events, socials, inter-club friendlies and things like that, and perhaps a little bit more joined up thinking about getting the clubs to share their courses with other clubs and what have you. And I think to do that would grow the game immensely.
Well, you've only got to look at the entries to the ladies, even though they've got this fantastic leagues, and I think year before last, you probably recognise that Rowney ladies won both leagues for the first time ever. There's a bit of a plug there, but and it's great.
I think that's fair enough, because the ladies who performed well and won the points, a lot of them were new to golf, and they've come straight through your school.
Incredible! They were new to golf, and there they are competing. But that's fantastic. But they wouldn't compete in the Scratch League. And if you look at the Isle of Man Golf Championships and look at the lady participants, until they threw it open to all sorts of handicaps and whatever, and put another, there was only 4 or 5 entered. So again, you've got to say to yourself, what is it we want to do?
But was that because it was quite obvious that we've got some super duper elite golfers? We've got the Dawsons, haven't we?
Yeah.
And would that have perhaps put them off, thinking, well,
maybe.
What's the point?
Maybe
in putting myself through this torture.
Maybe, but how many? I don't know. Maybe how many low handicappers are there? I don't know, Jed. I'm just generalising about the fact that golf clubs need to be much more socially based. Now the drink driving affected clubs, but that I'm not turning around and everybody drinking all night, whatever. Family orientated, Mr. and Mrs. orientated, partner orientated. And not, I'm going off to play golf here today, level C in 5-6 hours. It's just you've got to be more inclusive of the family. That's my view.
Times have changed. I think I've said it before. Referred to the 1990s, where I think golf really was booming on the island, and I think a lot of people are stuck in a time warp that those were the days when everyone got smashed, and there were big parties in the clubhouse, and so many great stories, so many characters, but I'm sorry, those days have gone. Life has changed.
Yeah, let me just give you one of the things I find quite fascinating. I really do. You have a competition on a club. You've got 140 people, 120 people entering, whatever it is. You've got an open event. You've got a shotgun start.
I know where you're going,
right?
Yeah.
And they're out there for 4 and 5 hours, and nobody gets off their arse and takes out a drink or a bacon bap or a coffee or a Twix or whatever it might be, and gets around the golf course providing some service to the golfers who've paid their subs, who've paid their entry fees, and are just hacking it around for 5 bloody hours, and nobody in the club says, how can we enhance the experience? I find it bizarre.
I think that's down to a lot of volunteer work. Looking at who are the volunteers, what the demographic is of the volunteers, what did they do in a former life. It could be if they weren't perhaps involved in the commercial side of things, not being unfair, but it could be that they're just not dialed into being aware of what the golfer might want or what might grow the club.
I don't think it's a giant step, Jed. I don't think it's a giant step to turn around and say we've got 140 people on the golf course today, and they're not going to be delivered any food or drink or whatever on the golf course. They're not, and by the time they come in, they're going to be out here now for 5 and 6 hours. I just don't get it. And it's money in the coffers. I'm sure that it can be worked out, and it's just it's just from the top.
I don't know. I think the ball has been dropped on many fronts, because you look at presentations. You look at the attendance of presentations, and then when you go and you think, well, why would you go? It's just to watch someone collect a prize, or you collect a prize yourself, but it's turning it into an event, isn't it?
Well, look, what about this one, Jed, on presentations? Every month you have a competition which attracts probably more entries or whatever. Why don't you have a shotgun start in the morning, a shotgun start in the afternoon, and the presentation in between the two?
That is going to work, isn't it?
Put on a soup and sandwich, a soup and a bit of toast. So as you come in from the morning round, you put your cards in and whatever. As you're getting prepared for the afternoon round, you're getting your cards and all the rest of it, and you have half an hour, 45 minutes, and in between the two shotgun starts. And you say, here's the presentation.
So you've got guaranteed, good turnout, and that way your sponsors can be respected. Your kind sponsors, because they are so valuable.
Cool. Anything like that. Surely it's got to. You've got to have some thinking outside the box. I remember 46 years ago when I got married. I used to do a Sunday lunch once a month, and we'd have all sorts of family members to come round. And one day my parents came round and I cooked a joint of beef. I used to do the Sunday lunch. And I presented the beef on the table, and there were beef joint like this was cut into 3 pieces, 2 end pieces and a big middle piece. And my wife Jan said, "What the hell have you done to that beef?" So I said to my mum and dad, I said, "This is how you cook beef, isn't it?" And they said, "Of course it is." I said, well, Jan said, "Well, why do you cook beef like that?" "Well, we've always done it. It's what your grandmother's done." So that following week we went to see my grandmother, and it said to her what had gone on, and said the beef had cut into 2 end pieces, and I said, "Because that's how you cook beef, isn't it? Why do you cook beef that way?" And she said to me, "Well, I don't cook it that way anymore. I used to cook it that way because the ovens were too small to take the piece of beef. But every fool knows that the ovens have got bigger, so you don't have to cut the beef anymore." And that about sums it up, which happens with golf. It's the same old, even though it doesn't fit the circumstances of today's. It just doesn't fit. And if people can't make a change, it's just great. Give it a go. Try it. What can you lose?
What have you got to lose?
What can you lose?
It can't get any worse. So try something new formats, new ways to encourage people into the game that we love.
Yeah, it's the greatest game on earth. You can play it at any level with your handicap in all sorts of combinations, and people who come to the game quite late, who've played hockey and whatever, quite often, nearly always, they'll say, "I wish I'd taken up before."
They do, and
why? I mean, to be able to go and play all these great courses across and abroad and whatever, and take your clubs, hire clubs, play on courses the great players have played on, and give it a go. I mean, there's nothing like it. And every single time you play golf, you come off the golf course and you should be asking yourself, what did I learn today? Because there's no game that teaches you as much as golf.
Exactly, and that is the beauty of the game. So thank you, John. It's been lovely to catch up. So we'll have another chat next time. We'll do a little bit more tuition on your series of expert instruction, which is really valuable, especially during the winter months where we can just have time to reflect on our game and maybe think about hitting that perfect shot time after time next year.
Yeah, next year.
Bye-bye.
See you.